Hello, folks. So we're here to remember and celebrate and mourn Michael. I just want to say all feelings are welcome here. And I also want to extend a very warm welcome to those of you who may be joining us online. I know Nina and Delia are joining us. I also know that there are going to be other friends and perhaps other family members joining us online as well. And as part of this isn't a talk. I'm not going to do This Is Your Life, Michael Foord, or anything quite like that. This is just a moment where we're going to invite folks to share memories and stories and reflections of Michael. I can see lots of you already smiling. But to set the mood, I think it would be appropriate. I was very honoured to be asked to give one of the eulogies at Michael's funeral. So I'm going to give you a version of that right now, just to set the mood and to get you thoughtful and maybe to laugh and cry a little. And then I'll invite folks to come up, and we'll come to that logistics when we get there. Okay, so here we go. I'm never going to wear this again. So I'm Nicholas. Like Michael, I'm a software engineer who mainly works with the Python programming language. I knew Michael for almost 18 years, and we shared many fun, interesting, and at times, frankly weird adventures, often with our families in tow. I want to share some memories to celebrate and remember our dear friend, Michael. We last saw each other only a couple of days before his passing. He was in a good place, and his usual larger-than-life self, full of energy and enthusiasm about work, and animated by where his life may yet lead. He told me all about Irina and Ben, of whom he was always exceptionally proud, along with his plans for saving for a new house, new training for clients, and his Python projects at work. Those 2 hours of joyful conversation over lunch ended all too soon, and later I told a mutual friend, Giles, how positive and together he seemed. It felt like his ship was pointing in the right direction, and he, as captain, had a clear sense of the waters that he wanted to explore. It was wonderful to see him like this, because, let's be honest, he was also a deep and complex man who, of his own admission, led a life full of challenges, paradoxes, and delightful eccentricities too. He met the challenges with honesty and bravery. We spent many hours walking and talking together in the woods at Evidence Stubbs. Often, it was a monologue of whatever was on his mind, and I learned of pain, struggles, and shadows as he found the courage to meet, work out, and then work through his internal demons. He was also a paradox. I don't think I've ever met anyone who could be more certain of himself, yet question everything at the same time. He didn't shy away from fiercely independent thinking, often about the oddest of subjects or through the most extraordinarily original and, yes, weird lines of argument. Yet his exceptional intelligence and capacity for creativity meant he was always several steps ahead of the rest of us, laughing as we tried to figure out just what on earth he was on about. And this originality expressed itself in other, perhaps eccentric ways too. Michael's approach to clothes was a thing to behold. His exploration of perfume and vaping meant you often smelled him days after his presence in a room. Mary, my wife, would often come home after Michael had visited, only to say, "Has Michael been?" And then there was his voice. I often find it hard to hear speech when there's a lot of ambient noise, and so at Northants Geeks Meet, which he set up and ran for many years, I could be by the bar trying desperately to listen to Stephen, who sat immediately in front of me, telling me all about his latest robotics project, only to struggle because all I could actually hear was Michael from the other end of the pub talking about perfume, crystals, stick insects, or Python, or heaven knows what else he had on his mind at that time. He had that baritone pitch, certain timbre, and dynamic boom that meant he cut through no matter what. Once met, Michael was never easily forgotten. Here's a typical example. Before COVID, I found myself in a large and important programming conference in Cleveland, Ohio, attended by thousands of Python coders. I was in the exhibitors hall during the opening reception and struck up a conversation with a Python buddy who was, how can I put it, a normal, conventional American soccer mum in her mid-30s. We talked about her kids, her job, her husband, and all the other typical normal things folks normally and typically talk about in such situations. And then Michael arrived. "Hello, old boy," he said to me, and I introduced him to my American mom friend. She was quite taken aback, for Michael was wearing a red knee-length leather trench coat kitted out with tie-ups and metal clasps. There was, of course, the psychedelic T-shirt and the stylized portrait of a Japanese geisha girl, large boots, and the inevitable man bag over his shoulder. To complete the ensemble, Michael sported a top hat and welder's goggles. As if that were not enough, I also remember he was carrying a wizard's staff too, because why not? He also had his vape, which, like a naughty schoolboy, he was surreptitiously using in plain sight, despite all the federal laws, the state laws, the obvious venue signage, and the rules of the conference telling him that he wasn't allowed to. What followed was a hilarious discourse on René Descartes' second meditation on first principles of philosophy, obviously. As I'm sure you all know, Descartes' second meditation ends with the immortal Latin phrase, "Cogito ergo sum," I think, therefore I am, which struck Michael as fascinating. I have to admit, I just stood back and let Michael do his thing, a shrewd, entertaining, and completely bonkers exploration of philosophy. The American mum was stunned into silence. Then suddenly he stopped mid-sentence, cocked his head as if to listen to a signal only he could hear, and he exclaimed to me, "Oh, I'm sorry, old boy, but I have a poetry reading to attend." And he quickly turned and strode into the throng of coders, parting it like Moses meeting the Red Sea. "Who the hell was that?" my friend asked as the top hat bobbed towards the exit. "Oh, that's my friend Michael," I said with a smile. "He's actually responsible for all the core test-related technology in the Python standard library." "He is? Yes, really, he is," was the incredulous response. Now, whenever I bump into my American mum friend at Python conferences, she always brings up that time psychedelic Gandalf gate-crashed our conversation in Cleveland. Later in COVID times, when I found myself in a dark place, he was, alas, unable to be there for me, for he was also struggling at that moment in his life. Yet, and here's one of the most important and admirable aspects of Michael, he bravely reconnected with me with honesty, humbleness, and what I can only describe as a trusting and vulnerable loving friendship. This was Michael's deep humanity on display, born of difficulty and distress, overcome through heroic and down-to-earth self-awareness, distilled with compassion. I'm so glad we reconnected, because some of our best times were the most recent ones. Seeing terrible films at the cinema, stimulating, thoughtful, and joyfully silly conversations shared over a pint or a meal. And then there was our way of greeting each other, a large hug to the words, "You sexy beast." Michael and I were born within a year of each other, so we're the same age, and I thought I'd know Michael for the rest of my life. So inevitably, with Michael's passing, I can't help but think of his legacy and what we have lost. It's easy to mention his immense and fundamental contributions to the Python programming language and his extraordinarily positive influence on the open source community. The Python-related message boards lit up with an enormous number of remembrances, thanks, and expressions of sadness when news of Michael's passing became known. He was well loved and well respected by everyone, without exception. When speaking of code, Michael demonstrated that rare attribute of a coder. He was an artist who appreciated the aesthetic, elegant, and expressive aspects of our craft. And I want to add, for non-technical folks in the audience, which probably doesn't apply at this point in time, that there probably isn't a day goes by without all of us using code in some way in which Michael had a hand. For what it's worth, Michael's expertise was in code used to test other code. That website you're using, it's probably tested and checked by software built with Michael's hand somewhere. Another legacy is his friendship. That you are all gathered here today to remember Michael, our dear friend, speaks volumes of the way he touched us all. Michael was a bon vivant, very generous and very, very funny. He loved to share stories and fun times with friends. I hope, at the wake that follows, we're able to honor his memory by sharing stories of Michael, just as he would spin a good yarn with all of us. Finally, I can't help but feel his most important legacy was simply the way he was. An example to us all. Yes, he was a complex man, but he lived life to its fullest extent, both bathing in the light and navigating through the shadows. Our beautiful friend. His sudden, unexpected, and premature death shows us all how important it is to live life to its fullest, just as Michael did. Because you never know how long you may have. Ars longer, vita brevis. Michael's capacity for joy, love, and mischief shone forth brightly. He blazed through technical challenges, ignited conversations, and dazzled with nimble repartee. We'll all miss him. Rest in peace, you sexy beast. That's it. So, I'd like to invite folks. We've got something akin to a lightning talk set up here. We've got some seats at the front. If you would like to contribute a memory or a reflection of Michael, please, I would like to invite you to come up to the front. First one up, I know that takes a lot of bravery, so I'll be here on stage with you as well, don't worry. And then we will just cycle round to see who else wants to come up. Things you might want to talk about, because I know I can see quite a number of you crying. So once you've got through the tears, things you might want to talk about are, how did you meet Michael? Or tell us a funny story. Or how did he help you? Because he helped a lot of us in the community. And perhaps you might want to describe one of his technical or community-related achievements as well. So if you'd like to come up, please do. Thanks, Will. Well, you could sit there, or you could come straight up, but Kushal can go and sit there, and Jakob could go second. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Will. I'm Nicholas's son, and I've kind of grown up knowing Michael, I suppose. I mean, this isn't prepared, so I'm just going to speak my memories, really. And I remember when I was small, Michael he was unique, loud voice, flame tattoo on his arm, and as a kid, I couldn't help but be a little unsure when I was around him. And I think that's natural. But as I got older and knew Michael more, so when Dad said he reconnected and he came over, it was really lovely because all of those uncertainties vanished, and I realized the person Michael was and how interesting he was to talk to, and that was really lovely to reconnect with him like that. So thank you.
Kushal? You'll have to speak on the stage because of cameras.
Coming in. Hi, I'm Kushal Das. One thing about myself, I generally try to run away if anything has to do with death because I still do not know how to express my emotions. So just jumping back into some old stories which I remember Michael from YouTube. This person who wrote this thing, which I'm using and trying to first time actually understood how these things work. And then comes to PyCon US 2013 and seeing the human being in front and still in shock. And like just before this, I was actually going through the old photos and just seeing Michael's Michael photo. You can imagine, and many of you may not know, but I became core developer. One of the main reasons was him, because of like working with him on the things. And I remember him and two other friends going out for some time and within coming back in 5 minutes, and suddenly him and I think Eric Smith told me, like, okay, Kushal, you broke Python enough number of times. Michael said, it's okay, it's your duty to fix it. So that's how I became a core developer. And personally, like spending time with him, like wherever, and only time managed to go to meet Nicholas and Michael's family, everyone together. But two things I have special in mind is the only time I saw a dragon in my life, which is literally holding, like Michael was holding it, Michael's favorite dragon, I guess, on his hand. And then the other thing is, we moved a couple of years ago from India to Sweden, and we mostly carried important documents, electronics, and my wife made sure to carry in the bag all the perfumes Michael gifted to her, along with her bags. So those, they're still there at home, like she's using it and talk about Michael in general. So yeah, I just don't know, but we miss you, Michael.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kushal. Thank you.
So I'm Jacob Hallen. I've been in the Python community for quite a long time. It's over 25 years, actually. And I don't really remember when I first noticed Michael, but I strongly remember 3 occasions when we spent quite a bit of time together. The first one was in Lausanne, where Armin Rigaud used to live, where we had a PyPy sprint, and he had decided to come to the PyPy sprint, and we programmed together, and we talked, and we spent quite a lot of time together discussing things, all sorts of things. He was just about to become a father, and he was actually quite worried about it, and they talked about it. I can only say that he became a really good father. He didn't need to worry. Then I have memories of him and my wife Laura and me walking through nighttime Atlanta after a PyCon, and having long discussions. I don't remember how long the walk was, probably over an hour. And we discussed everything in life, essentially, because that was the way Michael always acted. And my third memory is when we were at EuroPython in Florence, and there was a group of people sitting under the trees outside of the conference center discussing everything in life. And there were people coming and going all the time, but Michael was the core of this. And I can only say, I miss him very, very much.
So actually, I met Michael at EuroPython. It's 2018 in Edinburgh. I remember it was probably maybe the last day of the conference, or maybe second to last day. I really can't remember. But I remember I was walking down the Edinburgh venue, and then when I go out, at that time, it's my first EuroPython. I don't know anybody there. And I just saw this guy that looks super funny. He's, of course, like we all know him, his fashion sense is really out of the world. So I was really drawn to him. And I just think it would be fun to, spend an evening having dinner with him. So, yeah, I just kind of join in, because, we have a very welcoming community. Nobody thinks that I'm weird just to, join a bunch of people I don't know for dinner. So we went for dinner, and then we ended up having, with another mutual friend of ours, Steve, we were drinking whiskey, of course, whiskey in Edinburgh. And then we had such a good laugh, and I was like, immediately that day, after that day, I become friends with Michael. And actually, every time I tell anybody how fun the Python community is, a lot of those source of materials are from Michael. Not even just having fun being hanging out with him, and and he also tell me a lot of very great stories about what happened when it's kind of you at that point it's I'm listening to the elderlies telling me all the old stories of the community and stuff, and it's really fun. And at that time, I'm still very, very new to the community. I'm very new to the country as well. I just moved to UK not so long ago. I don't have family there. And I remember one Christmas, he invited me to visit him at his home. And that's a very, very, very warm gesture. And the kindness I would never, never forget. Because at that time, I'm personally going through some difficult time myself. And with Michael's help, I go through it. And he was such a good friend. And also, of course, Python, he helped me a lot. At the beginning, I didn't know how, he did so many great stuff, and and he, teach me how to build Python, CPython from source and all this stuff. So, yeah, really, really great, not just Python friend, but friend in general. So, really miss him. Yeah.
Tibbs, are you coming up? Yes.
I didn't know Michael as well as many of you, I think, but I knew him through the UK Python conferences. So I come to the UK Python conferences, was relatively shy, and there was this guy who was sort of big presence, doing these quite impressive technical presentations about unit testing and spreadsheets with Python and all these things, and pair programming, and working in companies where they're breaking the mold of how you do things, and being loud. But he was never scary. And he knew, he knew everybody. So once he got to know you, he remembered you. And then there must have been a gap of a decade where I didn't see him because he wasn't coming to Python conferences, etc. And then a couple of years back, he turns up and he's coming along the corridor towards me. He says, "Hey, Tibbs." And my insides melted because his world was a big world. He broke paradigms at me. I was talking to Nicholas the other day. His background of personal troubles that he fixed through belonging to what, when I was at school in Budbrook, near the area Nicholas and he lived, we thought of as a cult. But he used it as a way to bootstrap himself back to being the adult he was when I met him, the responsible person, the person who could help others. That broke my brain because that didn't work with how I'd seen that group of people when I was a child. He broke so many concepts of how the world should be, but he made it better. As I say, huge personality, should have been scary, totally failed at that. He was just comforting. And actually, when I first met him, I don't remember him being bright. I remember it was sort of heavy leather jackets and sort of dark browns and things. So I guess it's the opposite of bright. That came later. But I'm technically personally and just sort of generally, I'm really glad I got to know him a little bit. And he was way too young.
We're almost at time, so final opportunity, otherwise I'll wrap up. I think, Tibbs, thank you for saying that last thing. If your biggest failure in life is to not be frightening, then I think you're winning. And as Tibbs said, Michael was taken from us all too soon. I think perhaps as we go back into the conference, it's, I don't know about you folks, but it's been quite an intense session in here. You know, perhaps we can share more memories of Michael in the corridors and things like that. So I'd just like to thank you all for coming along. I'd especially like to thank those of you who came up and shared your memories and things. I just want to say thank you to Diego, whose idea this was as well, and for all the organisation and the things that went into making this happen. I really appreciate that. I just want to thank those who are watching online for being with us as well. If you're only looking at the backs of people's heads if you're online, but I just want to let you know that there's lots of tears down cheeks from the angle that I'm looking at the room as well. So so there we go. Michael Foord, rest in peace.